What's up, guys? Welcome to the Viva La Grid Podcast. I'm your co-host, Austin Diggins.
And I'm Sasha Zavala.
It's episode 5, Chinese Grand Prix review.
Yeah.
We've survived another race weekend.
Yes, we did. And can we already call it the Antonelli era?
We might already be in the Antonelli era, especially if Verstappen ends up just being done with these cars like we kind of all are. But yeah, it seems like a torch may have been passed.
Yes, absolutely. But before we jump on this whole race weekend, if you're watching the podcast right now, I am very sorry because we look exhausted.
It's really hard for race fans in the United States with these crazy hours of watching qualifying sessions at 2 a.m., trying to stay up at 2 a.m. for these races.
It was brutal.
It was brutal, and I always look a little bit tired, but
you're looking extra tired.
When it shows on you slightly, that's when you know it's a
I can
rough
put
one.
some makeup on. I can a little bit try to make it better, but right now I'm exhausted mentally, physically, everything. But we survived, and honestly, it was a great weekend for racing, especially for Formula One.
Yeah, racing all around. The Chinese Grand Prix race weekend, we had sprint qualifying, we had a sprint race, of course, the actual Grand Prix race. We had IndyCar here in Arlington, so not being too far away in Las Colinas, but yeah, it's been a great race weekend.
Yeah, and of course we also have the grand opener for F1 Academy.
Yes, how could we forget?
So yeah, let's start just talking about this whole race weekend because we have quite a lot to say.
Yeah, we like to keep things themed. So we started out with Chinese food, of course.
Yes.
Went to one of our favorite little restaurants right down the road in Fortune House, and we brought in the Chinese race weekend in style.
We've been going there for, I don't know, since we moved here, and we love it. They have great food, and we tried a few little dumplings that I love. We
Had the Donpur roll, of course.
Yes, a little bit of pork belly, which
it's incredible.
if you-
Melts in your mouth. It is
it's just
insane.
delicious and very fatty, very savory. It's just the best. And of course, we just had to celebrate before the grand day. But yeah, let's start with how the sprint went.
Sprint qualifying, we quickly realized that, well, Mercedes is still really damn good.
Yeah.
All through the weekend, Mercedes just were a step ahead. Even, I was high on Ferrari coming into the weekend. I thought that maybe the qualifying pace wasn't quite there, but the race trim was going to be much closer. And right off the bat, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli both were
They just showed
were
up with
blazing.
their freaking rocket ship and they took off.
Yeah, George Russell obviously qualified on pole for the sprint race. Kimi Antonelli in P2, and yeah, the sprint qualifying was much like we've seen in all the other qualifying sessions where the Mercedes are just a step ahead. Now, the one thing that was really disappointing was we quickly realized Red Bull were nowhere to be found.
No. And if you listen to our last episode, actually the preview for this race, I might have said some comments about the Red Bulls. Obviously, I was very wrong.
You were high on Verstappen.
It's just hard. It's hard not to root for him because he's such a good talent. We know he's just one of the best.
Well, he's the best talent.
Well, right. But right now, that card is just not delivering at all. And I don't know, should we bring Christian Horner back?
Whoa. Well, let's not go that far. I know he's a pretty divisive figure. Maybe he does end up taking over Alpine, and I couldn't see Verstappen going there. But the Red Bull is in much worse shape than we anticipated.
Yeah.
Because we were very high on them. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Okay.
So, obviously, the way that sprint qualifying worked, the Mercedes were just ahead of the field, and George Russell easily qualified on pole. The rest was kind of history. McLaren looked fast, which we weren't too high on McLaren coming in, but they definitely seemed to solidify themselves as the third team. Like I said, Red Bull were nowhere to be found, and Haas looked surprisingly quick.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're very excited about what's happening at Haas right now. And we have been talking about them since the whole season started. But it seems like, the drivers right now, they're quite like performing really well. The car is performing really well.
Behrman specifically has been,
Yeah.
whether it's been qualifying or as we'll get to in the race, he's been very impressive.
Yeah, so it's just very exciting to see basically a team that we have seen struggles for so many years actually doing amazing right now.
Yeah. So let's jump into the sprint race.
Yes.
Obviously, the start has been a debate, a discussion going since the Australian Grand Prix. And it continued to be quite entertaining.
Yeah.
The Mercedes got off to kind of a bad start, not a great start. Russell obviously got off to a better start than Antonelli. But the Ferrari starts have been out of this world. You had Lewis Hamilton surge to the front right at the beginning and take the lead at turn 1. You had Leclerc also right in the fight. Antonelli fell back and the midfield kind of ate him up. And you also saw a common trend here of Verstappen also getting off to a terrible start and falling way back in the field.
Yeah, and eventually we'll see basically the same thing happen later on.
Yeah, it's been bad for the Red Bull in that department. But the beginning of the sprint race saw Lewis Hamilton and George Russell yo-yoing back and forth for first place. Obviously, Antonelli, because he got off to such a bad start, it resulted in him having a collision with Isaac Hadjar. And so Antonelli got a 10-second penalty. And
and Hadjar was not happy about it.
Yeah, after the race, the two of them didn't
see
exchange
eye to eye. They were
too
like,
many nice words.
He needed some space.
He definitely needed some space. So you had Antonelli having to make up that time and go back through the field. And you had Verstappen starting again from the back, having to work his way through the field.
That is so tiring. And I can't even imagine what goes in his head.
It's got to be annoying,
yeah.
too. Especially when you're like, I could be doing all kinds of other things right now. It's not like I don't have other racing teams that want me in different racing disciplines.
Yeah.
So it looked like once Russell finally got past Hamilton, it looked like Russell was going to sail off into the sunset. And then Nico Hülkenberg had a safety car that ended up causing the field to become more condensed. And so at this time, you saw some teams jump into the pits like Red Bull. You saw some teams decide to stay out and just try to get through the end of the race.
Yeah.
And this caused a lot of drama at the end. So Verstappen, once again, after he had made some progress, is having to pass the cars that decided not to pit. The field got a little bit closer to George Russell, which made the end of the race a little more exciting. And we saw a pretty good ending to the race. Leclerc ended up passing Hamilton. Verstappen wasn't able to get back into the points. Antonelli had a good recovery drive.
Yeah.
And the sprint race, some usually aren't very entertaining, but this one was quite entertaining.
Yeah, and it really opened up more to the idea of what the race was going to look like, especially because they didn't really had enough time to practice.
Only one practice session.
Yeah, and once again, this track is like a track where basically your tires really like eat up.
Yeah, high degradation, a lot of graining.
Yeah.
And so we knew that was going to make for an interesting race. The way that the sprint race finished, George Russell in P1, Leclerc finished in P2, and Hamilton finished in P3. The Ferrari, obviously with a little help from Antonelli's penalty, were able to look pretty strong heading into the qualifying and actual race.
Yeah. Well, at that point, you were really like very excited. You're like, wait, is this really happening?
I was feeling pretty good. And like I said, I was Ferrari'd up throughout the whole weekend.
I think you have been Ferrari up since the very beginning of the season.
I knew the car was good. And the qualifying can be a little deceiving at times. Obviously, the qualifying pace wasn't always that great, especially when I thought we would be competing more for 1s and 2s as opposed to 3s and 4s. But the Ferrari car has a lot of promise, and I think later on in the season they're going to be even more competitive than they already are.
It can only get better.
Yeah, it can. So let's jump into qualifying.
All right.
Now that we saw sprint qualifying, the assumption was that it was kind of just going to be much of the same. And for the most part, it was, but it wasn't without a little drama.
There's always drama.
George Russell in Q2 ended up breaking his front wing, and it really put him on the back foot. Obviously, they had to repair the wing. Then we got into Q3, and so you think the wing's repaired, and George Russell's going to, once again, because he was dominating the whole race weekend, you're thinking that he's going to just put it on pole, and then that's going to be the end. You know, we've talked about how people who qualify on pole usually have a high conversion rate into winning the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was going to be more of the same, but the drama continued for Russell as he started moving really slowly on the track and ended up looking like he was going to have to retire because it looked like it was going to be some kind of power unit problem.
Honestly, I think this is like the time where I woke up again.
Yeah, because it was really late.
Yeah, and all I can see is literally him just waiting it out, and I'm already looking at the, how you call it, the roster with all the times, and I'm like, is he not going to make it? Is he not going to put a time? Yeah. So at that point, I'm like thinking to our last conversation on the podcast, I'm like, wait, did the Chinese actually did some juju on him?
Well, as dominant as he was throughout the rest of the week, it would have been crazy if he had started 10.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have actually changed much.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, it looked like he wasn't going to be able to put a time down in Q3 of qualifying.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Kimi Antonelli was blazing.
Yeah.
You know, throughout the whole week, Kimi Antonelli's been good. He hadn't been as fast as George Russell, but Kimi Antonelli was able to set a blazing lap and put it on provisional pole.
Yeah, for sure. And for a minute, I didn't thought Russell was going to make it, but eventually he makes it to P2.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama there because as good as Russell had been, it looked like he wasn't even going to have a chance to compete. And he was really the only other one that was going to be able to compete with Antonelli.
Yeah.
And like we said, how whoever puts it on pole usually wins the race. There was a lot to fight for there.
Yeah.
And so kudos to the Mercedes team for being able to get Russell's car ready to where he could actually put in a time in the final minutes. But he wasn't able to put it on pole, and so George Russell had to settle for P2.
Yeah, but therefore we ended up having the youngest ever pole setter in Formula One, and that is Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, that's a crazy accomplishment, especially when you consider how many greats started Formula One at a young age.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised that Verstappen didn't hold that record, but
I think he has other records.
He holds all the other records.
Yeah.
So it was Sebastian Vettel who Kimi Antonelli broke the record for. Mm-hmm. And it's the first Italian to be on pole since 2009.
Yeah, that is incredible. And I think we even saw some great news from the Italian Prime Minister. Is that who they have, or president?
Yeah, I know she was tuning in throughout this weekend, so she had to be really excited.
Yeah. So we're really excited for him. He's only 19, and that is an incredible achievement.
Yeah, it was damage limitation for George Russell. It could have been way worse, and it would have made his life a lot harder in the actual race.
We do need him to have a little bit of struggle, not everything in a silver platter.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're 2 races in, and I've already had enough of George Russell, especially after the King George comments you made on the last podcast.
Okay, I have a better name for him now, but I'll tell you later.
Antonelli was on pole. George Russell put it in P2. You had the Ferraris of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. The McLarens looked pretty fast in qualifying, and Piastri was able to put it in P5 with Norris in P6. And then Pierre Gasly has actually been surprisingly good to start the season in the Alpine. You know, they had the Mercedes power unit, and he's been actually overachieving, in my opinion. Yeah,
he's doing way better than last season. So far, so good.
Yeah, so Pierre Gasly starts the race in P7, followed by the Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar. And then rounding out the top 10, you had another young up-and-coming star in Ollie Behrman.
Your favorite.
Yeah, I'm impressed with him. Every race I get more and more impressed.
Yeah.
So that was the top 10 to start the race. And as you'll see in a second, the race definitely delivered.
It did. That's honestly where the drama came. And I don't know what else to say about it, because this whole race really threw us off a little away from what we already have seen during practice and then also the sprint race. But it really shows where this new regulations, or who is affecting with this new regulations. So
Yeah, it definitely did. I don't know. It seems like right now we're batting 1,000 in regards to every race having a no manches moment before the race even begins.
yeah, that's too much.
We had Oscar Piastri crashing out, not even being able to race in the Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
The McLarens can't catch a break right now, and this time it impacted both drivers.
Yes.
Before the race began, we had heard that the McLarens were trying to get their car ready.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to get it ready. We saw Oscar. He was just kind of in the interviews, and they're like, yeah, I heard that, Lando is having some issues right now. We thought Lando was just going to start from the pit lane. But then later on, once everybody was getting ready to start the race, we don't see the McLarens at all.
We don't see Piastri, and that was a curveball because I was like, he was just doing the interview, and he seemed perfectly fine. He probably a little content that it wasn't his car, and then it came to bite both of them.
Yeah, and we started a race with literally no McLarens.
Yeah,
then
the McLarens were both out. Alex Albon was out.
Alex Albon, it's nowhere to be found either.
Gabriel Bortoleto is also out.
Yes.
And it's just, from the very beginning, a battle of attrition. Somehow the Aston Martins are still in it at this point. And we started the race losing
4 drivers from the very beginning.
4 drivers and 2 premier drivers.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Zach Brown wasn't even present, which is great for him because making all his way to China
to see that.
Just to see that, yeah,
it was a shit show.
Yeah, definitely.
So, once again, we've talked about in the past how the starts of these races have been chaotic and crazy. Some drivers seem to have it figured out while others don't.
Yeah.
And it continued to just highlight that the Ferraris, they may not always be a rocket ship, but they're a rocket ship at the starts of races.
They know how to get their car going.
And this was nothing new. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc both starting the race it was blast off. Hamilton was able to take the lead from George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Russell actually fell back in the pack, so Leclerc was able to pass him as well.
Yeah.
And Antonelli did a good job of being able to hold off Leclerc and also keep Russell at bay, because all the talk has been about how George Russell is going to run off with this championship. And I don't think we've really been giving Kimi Antonelli too much of a shot.
I think it falls within, you're the new kid. It's supposed to be George's time. And he also kind of surprised us during the sprint qualifying and the sprint race because we weren't looking at Kimi. We knew, Kimi is with Mercedes. Of course, the car is good. But all eyes on Russell and all eyes on Leclerc and Hamilton. Kimi was just kind of there. Yeah. Just hanging, just like doing his own thing. And out of nowhere, the race starts. And we start seeing that Kimi is literally number 1.
Yeah. Which the car is obviously a great reason why, but Kimi Antonelli, there's a reason he was promoted this young to be in a premier Formula 1 team.
I mean, he wasn't even in Formula 3?
Yeah, he skipped Formula 3.
Yeah.
And Kimi Antonelli has been incredible, and as we'll see shortly, he continued that.
Yeah.
But Hamilton and Leclerc and the Ferraris got off to a great start. George Russell, once again, had a poor start, but it continued for Verstappen. At this point, I'm feeling just as sick as he is, probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's feeling worse, but it's brutal to watch when arguably the world's best driver looks like he's just in cement or quicksand and just getting eaten up by teams and cars who have no business being ahead of him.
Yeah, and especially all the rookies that we knew that last season were struggling, like they didn't know what to do. And right now it's so hard to see him. That start of the race was terrible.
Yeah.
Everybody just was literally running next to him, and he was just like a little turtle.
Yeah, he was. And Verstappen ends up dropping back to P14 right off the start. But someone who made a great start, Carlos Sainz. We started P17, was able to get up to P10, and the race took off from there. We saw a Hamilton and Antonelli battle.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Hamilton was not able to hold off Antonelli that much. We've mentioned the Mercedes is a rocket ship, and Antonelli was able to gain the lead after the second lap.
Yeah, and after that, I think he just kind of kept going.
Yeah, we thought Russell was going to sail off into the sunset in the sprint race.
Yeah.
Antonelli, there was no looking back from there.
No, he was like, I'm set, I'm going, goodbye.
Yeah. The way that it had kind of settled was Antonelli in P1, Hamilton and Leclerc in P2 and P3, and George Russell in P4. And Russell was just picking and choosing, just waiting. The Ferraris were kind of duking it out throughout the race. But the Alpines actually, at the beginning, had a very opportunistic start.
Yeah, with the McLarens completely gone out of the race, they were able to move up. And I mean, at this point, from the very beginning of the race, we're seeing this dynamic of like actual teams racing each other. Yeah. We're seeing the Ferraris and the Alpines just gonna battling each other.
But as the race kind of settled in, very early on, we saw Verstappen complaining about his tires.
Yeah.
Verstappen and Hadjar both were the only two that were on soft tires. The rest of the field were either on mediums and hards. And it was kind of a gamble for Red Bull, but they had such bad starts and they were nowhere in the midfield that they needed to take a risk. And it really didn't pay off because you saw such graining on the soft tires and the degradation for those tires was so high, especially on the Red Bull, that Max Verstappen wasn't even able to do the predicted number of laps on those soft tires.
Yeah. I think at that point he's saying like, my tires they're not good. And I think it was like lap 9 and those tires supposed to be like last at least 15 to 20 laps. 15
to 20 laps and Verstappen's ready to pit. Yeah. Ultimately, Verstappen does decide to pit really early. And it's like a series of unfortunate events for this Red Bull right now.
Yeah.
Because shortly after Verstappen pits, and it wasn't a great pit stop to begin with, a safety car gets triggered because Lance Stroll has to retire from the race.
Yeah.
And at that point, all the top cars decide to pit and take advantage of that 10 seconds saved.
Yeah.
It just went from bad to worse for Verstappen.
And of course, that also causes for the whole grid to get shuffled.
Right. Some cars decide to stay out. So you had Ocon and Colapinto decide to stay out.
Yeah.
The top guys were out on new tires, so they were able to dispose of the Alpine and the Haas pretty quickly. And Antonelli was able to really gap out early. He was able to get the lead and then slowly build it because the Ferraris and Russell were in the midst of a pretty big battle.
Yeah, I think we got to see that actually quite often throughout the whole race. And I think we really put them to work this time around. Or at least Russell really had some challenges right there in front of him.
He had some challenges, and he probably had a really damn good show because the Ferraris were going back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
It was to the point where I thought they were going to crash multiple times.
Oh, my God.
They were going toe-to-toe. It was back and forth. Leclerc would pass Hamilton. Hamilton would pass Leclerc. And Russell's just kind of sitting there waiting, picking his moment.
Well, that's what I thought, too. I was like, I understand it's early. They're maybe trying to decide who's going to be number one or whatever. But because it's early, the Ferraris are basically, they're letting them race. Yeah. So they can really establish who's going to take the lead. However, of course, we have Lewis Hamilton, who is obviously a world champion. And then we have Leclerc, who has the whole right to fight for the championship.
Yeah, he's Mr. Ferrari.
Yes, so it's kind of like, okay, at this point, it's up to you guys. You guys have the car. It's up to you to figure out who's going to be on top.
Yeah. The two of them were battling, and George Russell picked his moment and then disposed of them after lap 28.
Yeah, and one thing to have in mind is, yes, you're seeing this overtake with these two cars, but with these new regulations, it's a different dynamic because, of course, these cars are using all their battery power, their energy, their boost, their overtakes, and all these things. Then it's honestly just like a waiting game at that point because you exhaust all of that, and then by the time you're done, the next car is right behind you, and they can literally just use their power to literally overtake you.
Yeah, then once they've used theirs and you've saved yours, you can do the same thing. So when we hear the drivers say it's artificial, it does seem very artificial.
Yeah, because then we got to see the same dynamic. No, obviously with the Ferraris, but we got to see the same dynamic with the Haas cars. And we had, what is it, that jojoing racing. And even I think the commentators say that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's been a term that they've probably pushed for the commentators to say, but to me, kind of negative. I don't. It's got a negative connotation to it. I don't think it's something that we should be viewing.
Well,
as
it's kind of like a back and forth, and then until when it's over, it's kind of like, all right, you're gonna take the lead.
But while it's entertaining, it's not really Formula
It's not
1.
racing.
It's not. It's fake.
Yeah.
We had that with the Haas. We had that with the Ferraris, and the Ferrari battle was really entertaining.
Yeah, it was. To the point that Leclerc came out and he's like, well, that was fun.
He had a great time.
Yeah.
The Ferraris really became the race because you had Antonelli 7, 8, 9 seconds ahead of the field.
He just stayed on the top.
You had Russell in P2, and although he was slowly gaining on Antonelli, Antonelli was never really in any trouble. And then you had the Ferraris battling each other. Now, the race got pretty interesting with the Alpines because Colapinto was holding off the Haas's and Ollie Behrman and Esteban Ocon, and Gasly was in the mix as well. That was really kind of where the race was a race.
Yeah.
The rest was pretty much settled at that point.
Yeah. One moment that I want to bring into conversation is when Lindblad spins, but not because he spins. It's more like the reaction from the crowd. Usually, whenever we're watching these races, we can really see the reaction, but you could hear it. And that whole crowd was completely loud. They were really excited. They were like, whoa!
Yeah. We know Chinese fans to be very passionate.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it's the Asian community that are just very passionate. When they like something, and they're gonna go and do, everything for what they love.
Yeah. How many Lewis Hamilton flags did you see?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's another good moment to talk about because I feel like that was a whole fan club right there. It was in the grandstands and it was a whole section that was all about Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. It was really cool to see and to hear that, like you said, to hear the crowd just roaring at multiple times at Lindblad's spin when there were overtakes.
Yeah.
They really, you could tell, were excited to see Formula 1.
But now that you're bringing that up, I have to remember that Lewis has won in China many times.
Yeah.
So
he's
makes
the favorite,
total sense that he is the favorite. And also he brought in something into conversation that we kind of also touch on really whenever we started the podcast, how the fan base has grown. He mentioned that, of course, he's been to China many times. He mentioned that this year has been the year that he has seen the most fans at any of the Chinese Grand Prix.
With the race being canceled because of COVID for 3 years, and now everything really starting to return to normalcy, I'm sure they've been ready to get out and go to all the events they can. So
Yeah.
You can tell they're passionate about Formula 1.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows. So I just thought it was like a cool thing to notice, especially because, again, not often we get to hear the crowd, especially on a live streaming event like that.
Yeah, it was really cool. So at this point in the race, you've got Antonelli in prime position to win his first Grand Prix. You've got George Russell in P2. No one's going to be catching him.
Yeah.
You've got the Ferraris battling it out in P3 and P4. We just didn't know who was going to finish ahead. But one of the cooler battles that we saw was Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen that.
Yeah, it's been a while. But there was more of the yo-yoing back and forth, which was entertaining, but once again, not really racing, kind of artificial.
Right, and again, we have to have in mind that at this point, Verstappen has literally worked his whole way from the back to getting into position to be a little bit more into the points.
You know, he's got to be annoyed when he's thinking, how can I not even pass Pierre Gasly?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here?
But then after that, we got to see another car literally leave the grid, leave the whole race, and that was Alonso.
Yeah. Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin, we've heard how the car has been a terror to drive. The vibrations have been so intense. And we saw video of Alonso literally taking his hands off the steering wheel at times because the vibrations were so bad.
Yeah, no, that has to be really draining on your body. Again, we know that obviously this races are not easy for the drivers. There's already so much movement that goes within just like keeping it together, your neck keeping it together,
the
because they go
G-force, the weight
yeah,
loss.
they go so fast. But not adding more movement to literally what's supposed to keep you like stable the whole time, that is so much work. And I cannot even think, especially he's not that young, so that has to take a big toll on his body.
Imagine how that impacts your concentration.
Oh, that
when
too.
That's in the back of your mind as you're trying to race and you're having to deal with those obstacles as well.
Or trying to do all these maneuvers with the new boost and overtake and all these things. It's just a lot. We got to see another car leave the race.
Yeah, so Alonso retires the car. Shortly after that, Leclerc and Hamilton keep swapping, which leads to Lewis Hamilton taking the lead from Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
And then,
out of nowhere again,
not to be outdone, and I think this was my no manches moment that I predicted.
Yeah, you got it right.
The Red Bull and Max Verstappen has to retire the car.
Yeah.
On lap 46.
Yeah.
You could tell he was struggling with the car all day. It just wasn't in the right window for where it needed to be competitive, and Red Bull decided to retire Max Verstappen.
Yeah, and it's just sad because he was in 6th place. He made it all the way back to 6th place, and it's just a lot of work. Yeah. A lot of work for nothing.
Yeah, like, you fall back, you spend all that time trying to get back up into the front of the pack. And it's something when we mentioned how he's not able to pass Gasly. Eventually he does pass Gasly, but he couldn't even come close to the Haas.
Yeah.
He was in a 2.5 second window from the Haas, basically the whole last 15 laps through the race. So the fact that the Haas and Ollie Behrman is a better car and a more competitive car than the Red Bull says it all right now.
Yeah, that is insane for sure. But I mean, what is even more insane is the fact that we literally have at this point 7 cars not starting the race or completely not finishing the race at all.
You had the 2 McLarens, you had Alex Albon, you had the 2 Aston Martins at this point, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Max Verstappen.
Literally a world champion.
Yeah, it was a battle of attrition, and it just kind of shows that it's the early stages of these regulations, but
they're not working.
They're not great right now. We knew there was going to be some growing pains, but I don't think Formula One wants to see both McLarens out and the world's best driver in Max Verstappen.
Yeah, again, we got to see that, and I think after that it's just seeing and waiting to find out who wins this race, and it's honestly one person that is ahead.
Kimi had really no issues once he took the lead of the race. He had that little spin at the end that I'm sure that kind of woke him up a little bit. It gave him a jolt to be like, oh crap, I need to keep my concentration. But he was setting fastest lap after fastest lap near the end of the race.
We're seeing the race, and we're seeing Alonso, we're seeing Max, and out of nowhere, we keep seeing his name up there, fastest lap. I'm like, boy.
Kimi Antonelli really didn't have much competition as this race went on, and George kind of settled in P2, Hamilton in P3, Leclerc in P4, and that's kind of just how we just kind of waited in anticipation of Kimi Antonelli winning his first race in Formula One.
Yeah, big congratulations to him. That is a big achievement, and I'm sure that is, like a dream come true.
Yeah, so Kimi Antonelli, as the race ended, secured his maiden victory in Formula One, becoming the first Italian driver to win a Grand Prix since 2006.
Yeah, 20 years in the making.
The second youngest to win a Grand Prix behind Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
So the accolades just keep racking up.
Yeah.
And it was exciting. We got to see his dad. It was emotional for his dad. It was a great moment. Obviously emotional for him. Yeah. Emotional for Lewis Hamilton even.
Yes,
seeing his successor win at such an early age and just being happy for him. Lewis, spoiler alert, as we have already said, Lewis Hamilton finished in P3.
Yeah.
He was able to get his first podium in Ferrari. And to be able to share that with Kimi Antonelli getting his first win, it was a really special moment for Formula One.
Yeah, it really was. And again, we kind of see the whole thing with the present, the future, in the past when it comes to the Mercedes. Of course, now Lewis in the Ferrari, but I think it's just a really big family. And Toto Wolff also came out I think it was after the sprint qualifying or the sprint race.
Yeah.
He came out, he's like, Lewis, he's still our driver. Like, for a minute, I thought
He
we
thought he
had
had
three
three
cars.
drivers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 cars up there. But overall, I think even some other comments from Toto was that when Antonelli wins and he comes out and in the mic and he's like, they said he was too young, he needs more experience, this and that. And then he's like, this is why he's here.
Yeah, you've arrived, and
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
I think another really cool thing was when Antonelli was giving the interview, he couldn't hold back the emotions.
I mean, I didn't either.
Honestly, I think we all kind of felt that,
Yeah.
like, wow, this is a really cool moment, and we're seeing the next superstar of Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why we're calling it the Antonelli era.
Yeah, the Antonelli era. But we have to take a step back and criticize Formula One. Can we not?
Wait, dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your whole family.
Can we not get his name right? As they're getting ready to go up onto the podium, they're announcing Lewis Hamilton, the crowd cheers, George Russell, the crowd cheers.
Everything is literally perfectly fine. The dream, everything is going right.
And the winner of the Chinese Grand Prix, Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen has been retired since 2021. What are we doing?
Oh, man.
You knew he was going to win the race for like 40 laps. You had time to
You
prepare.
had about 4 days to literally get his name right.
Oh, it was just, and his reaction was
He
priceless.
was like, ooh. Yeah.
George Russell's like confused.
He was
as
like,
well.
wait a minute.
So that was embarrassing, but it shouldn't take away from a great moment for.
If anything,
Kimi
I think it just
Antonelli.
made it a little bit more epic.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was a very priceless reaction.
Yes.
So the way that the race finished, you had Kimi Antonelli in P1, George Russell in P2, Hamilton and Leclerc in the Ferraris in P3 and P4, Oliver Behrman in P5.
Yeah.
Now, we predicted before the season that Haas would be the best of the rest, but I don't think we thought that they might be better than the Red Bull.
I mean, yeah, I think the Red Bulls are really struggling terribly. And again, I don't know if it's a principal. I don't know if it's a engineer.
Some with the new power unit.
Yeah,
That's going to be.
yeah. So we don't know, but they really need to take this time off to really bring their guns, because we know a certain driver is not very happy,
Right.
and we don't want him to get bored of it. We want him to stay.
And I could see where this would get annoying pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So in P6, Pierre Gasly, another strong performance. First 2 races of the season, and Gasly is in the points.
Yeah.
Good result for Alpine. P7, Liam Lawson, your favorite. Mm-hmm. Great result for Lawson. P8, Isaac Hadjar. So he was able to save a little bit of face for Red Bull.
Yeah, for Red Bull.
But still, the Red Bulls and
I
P8s
mean-
behind Haas, behind Racing Bulls.
And how
No.
crazy is that?
It just further shows that the Red Bull has a lot to figure out.
Yeah.
P9, Carlos Sainz. So starting from P17 to making it to P9, despite the fact that Williams hasn't taken their Ozempic
Yeah.
yet, that is a good result for Carlos.
Yeah, and I mean, he got some points too, so.
Yeah, and finishing out the top 10 is Franco Colapinto. The Alpine and Fabio should be pretty happy right now.
I hope so.
Yeah. With that, let's look at kind of some big picture takeaways from the second race that we can kind of highlight. And it's number one, Mercedes they're still the premier team. They've built a little bit of a gap to Ferrari. And I think right now no one's touching them. It's just kind of a matter of who's going to be better between Antonelli and Russell.
Yeah.
And right now it's 1-1.
Yeah, I think they're kind of having the same situation with Ferrari. The both cars are really good. They're competitive. They're fast. So it's just going to be a matter of figuring out who's going to be number one for them and who's really just racing within each other.
Yeah, I know we had mentioned earlier, I don't think a whole lot of people were really giving Antonelli a chance. Everyone was talking about how George Russell, the championship leader, well, he still is, but the gap has closed significantly.
Yeah. I think it's only, like 4 points?
Only 4 points behind now, Antonelli is. And he really kind of showed today that, hey, I'm in this thing too, and I've got a legitimate shot at winning.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ferrari are off the pace of Mercedes, but they've really solidified themselves as the second best team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that we couldn't see McLaren race today because they did look better. But I think Ferrari are still a step ahead, and it's just really kind of ironing out all the kinks to see if they can really compete with the Mercedes.
Yeah.
My next takeaway here is that the Haas is legit.
Yes.
Behrman has had a hell of a start to the season.
Yeah.
He's been faster than Verstappen.
I mean, I think he's carrying the team.
He's carrying the team, yeah, because Ocon hasn't been in the points.
Yeah.
But I think the Haas is a tidy package, and I think Ollie Behrman has really arrived.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because, Lewis Hamilton won't be with Ferrari forever, and Behrman's just kind of waiting in the wings.
Yeah. He will be a really good substitute for sure.
Yeah. And lastly, Red Bull and McLaren have had terrible starts to the season. We can't really sugarcoat it. Both McLaren's not racing today. Oscar Piastri not racing in the Australian Grand Prix. Yeah, that's mind-blowing. Piastri hasn't raced a single lap in Formula One this season.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, and Red Bull really have a lot to figure out. That's kind of the big picture takeaways.
Yeah, and one more to kind of bring it into conversation is we have a brand new team on the grid that is Cadillac, and can we say that we know they're not doing the best, but they're finishing races.
They're doing better than Aston Martin.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been pretty with Cadillac so far. They've been significantly off the pace. But the fact that they were able to finish with both drivers finishing the races today is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and again, this is just the second race, so.
Yeah. So the driver standings, you've got George Russell at the top. Kimi Antonelli only 4 points back.
It's really close.
This could be a Hamilton-Rosberg type situation here, and it's only going to get even more competitive as the season goes on. You've got Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton only a point separated in third and fourth, and Oliver Behrman in fifth.
Yep.
It's mind-blowing that he's ahead of Lando Norris. He's ahead of Oscar Piastri, obviously.
Yeah.
Ahead of Max Verstappen.
That is insane.
Haas got to be very happy with his performance right now. Lando Norris, only points in the first race in P6 right now in the Drivers' Championship. And Pierre Gasly ahead of Max Verstappen for 7 and 8.
Wow.
Behrman and Gasly both ahead. It's only been 2 races, but what's going on here?
I know. It's so weird to see his name so low.
Yeah. The Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson and Len Blatter at 9 and 10, and then the rest are still trying to find their footing.
Yeah. It's a long season, so, well, it's getting shorter by the minute, but we'll have, yeah.
The Constructors' Championship, Mercedes have built a nice gap over Ferrari. Mercedes are well ahead of Ferrari right now. McLaren is slightly ahead of Haas, who is situated as the 4th best team. Red Bull and Racing Bulls are tied at 12 points.
That is insane again.
Yeah,
what are we doing? Red Bull, what are we doing?
I know we said Red Bull have 2 teams, but this isn't what we meant.
Yeah.
This isn't what was supposed to happen.
It's not that we can actually combine points here, okay?
And then you've got Alpine, Audi, and then the rest with 0.
Yeah.
Obviously, the season is still early, but
I don't know. Those Mercedes and those Ferraris are really...
They're the top 2 teams right now. And
they're really showing up.
It's really not that close.
Yeah.
That kind of sums up the Chinese Grand Prix. It was a pretty chaotic and busy weekend.
It really was.
I'll be happy when we return to more normal hours of racing.
Yeah, it's so hard for us. Like, we really try to stay up, and especially for this specific, now that we're doing this content, it's really hard to get everything out, like, in a timely manner. Yes. Yeah. It's like, even if you listen to our last episode, we were doing predictions without any knowledge about how these cars were performing for this specific race.
It was very obvious after the first practice session that we watched shortly after recording the podcast that Mercedes were a rocket ship and Ferrari was the second best team, but Ferrari weren't going to truly be able to compete.
Yeah. But they did show up. I mean...
They had a lot to build off of, and they should be very happy moving forward.
Yeah.
There's still a little bit of news to get to. We had the first weekend of F1 Academy.
Yes, we did. We had the opener of the F1 Academy, and I didn't know this, but they actually, instead of having one race, they have two races. And one of them, it's actually a reverse grid race, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. It probably really throws them off because it's the opposite of what they're preparing for when they do the other race.
I wonder if they actually practice it that way, because at least you have the game, the F1 game, and whenever you go and do these things, you're able to just do the track the same way or the right way, I guess.
Yeah, the F1 game actually this year introduced reverse grids on some tracks.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so maybe they're practicing on that. Who knows?
Yeah. I just thought it was very interesting because I'd never seen that. But we have actually two winners for this races. One was Nina Gateman, and she actually races for MP Motorsport Alpine. And the other girl that won the second race, that is Emma Felbermay. Is that how you pronounce her?
Emma Felbermeyer.
Felbermeyer. There you go. I sound better now. Emma Felbermeyer. There you go. She races for Rodin Motorsport. It's an Audi car.
Yeah, so Audi's first win.
Great start for all-female series, and congratulations for both of the winners.
Yeah. Not only was that in the news, but we were notified that the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix are going to be canceled.
Yeah.
This is really disappointing, obviously, because you can't change what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the Middle East right now, as most everyone knows.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to take the chance, especially logistically.
Yeah,
there's a lot of planning. That's a lot that goes on. And right now, there's a lot of volatility and chaos in that region. Unfortunately, both of those races are going to be canceled, and I don't know if Formula One intends to add them back on at a different part of the year. But
that is really hard to plan
it's
it
hard
out.
To navigate.
Yeah.
What that does is that creates a little bit of a lull in the Formula One schedule.
Yeah.
Now we're 2 weeks away from Japan.
And
then we're
on vacation.
A whole month away from Formula One until Miami at the beginning of May.
They get a little spring break.
They get a spring break, and the one silver lining is that it's going to give all of the teams a chance to figure out what the hell is going on with these cars.
Yeah.
What's going on with our power units? How can we make our cars better heading into Miami? I imagine you'll see a lot of teams bringing significant upgrades and hopefully shortening the gap that Mercedes has on everybody.
Yeah, they definitely need to work on those cars.
Yeah.
We need to see at least the Red Bulls being competitive, because right now they're not. I don't know exactly what else the McLarens need to do, but I know for sure that they're not happy. Of course, they want to be in that number 1 or number 2 spot. So we're going to have to see what they do in this upcoming weeks.
Yeah, you're going to have McLaren probably bringing significant upgrades. You're going to have Red Bull really assessing their car.
Yeah.
Hopefully Williams loses a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
And they look more competitive than they have been, because honestly, they've been a huge disappointment. I know Carlos was in the points, but it took a lot of other things to happen for Williams to even be close.
Yeah.
They're really going to have to do better.
And for sure, please, Aston Martin, work on your car, because Alonso cannot take it any longer.
Yeah, I know he's old, but let's not make his retirement any worse than it might already be.
That car just looked terrible, honestly.
There is a month away from Formula One, and I think someone's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen is going to be racing in an NLS race next week. And it comes at a good time because he hasn't had any enjoyment or fulfillment in the Red Bull car. Yeah, and racing in general. So racing in a GT car hopefully will ignite that passion that we know that he has for racing.
That, or it ignites the passion somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe it expedites his leave from F1. But Verstappen, like I said, is going to be racing next week. He's going to be competing on March 21st, and it falls in between the Japan race.
Yeah.
And with Formula One being out next month, it's also going to give him the opportunity to race in a few more of these GT races if he wants to. So
I don't know.
I just want to see Verstappen happy.
Yeah.
And hopefully he doesn't have too much fun in this car where he decides to leave Formula One. But it's going to be good to see him actually being competitive in a different car.
It's just hard. It's hard to see him, like, not enjoy it. And I know there's fans out there that are not big on Verstappen, but you have to think about it. Like, once again, he's not old. Mm-hmm. He's literally one of the probably mid-age, I guess, like 20s.
It's funny that he's not old, but yet every young driver is picking his brain and looking up for him. I know Antonelli looks at him like an older brother.
Yeah.
And so does Bortoleto.
Yeah.
He really is a mentor, and he's accomplished everything he can in Formula One. At some point, you think he's going to take the next step somewhere else.
Right. And I think we were talking about that in the last episode, because at this point, yes, he has accomplished several championships.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's not happy right now, but he's moving on to try other types of racing. Yeah. And who knows, maybe we're going to have a Max Verstappen champion of all racing sports.
Yeah, Max Verstappen GT champion. He's got the race next week. He's going to be racing in the Nordschleife at the Nürburgring Ring in May. So who knows, but we'll be cheering him on.
Yeah.
But that's it for Chinese Grand Prix weekend. We saw the rise of Kimi Antonelli. We saw the Ferraris be competitive and more Red Bull woes.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Just follow us, Viva La Grid Podcast.
Like, subscribe. Please interact with us. We enjoy commenting with everyone, and y'all provide some pretty entertaining comments.
That's hilarious, yeah.
We look forward to seeing you at the Japanese Grand Prix, and until next time, see you guys.
See you guys. Bye.